Welcome back. Believe it or not, we're just months away now from the 5-year anniversary of when Superstorm Sandy devastated this region. Hundreds of thousands of people's lives were greatly disrupted by the powerful storm. Tens of thousands of properties were destroyed or badly damaged. And there are still thousands of displaced Long Islanders still trying to get back into their damaged homes. So where do we stand nearly 5 years later? Joining us now are two guests from the organization that lent such a big helping hand during the storm, the American Red Cross. With us are the Long Island Chapter CEO, Neela Lockel, and one of the organization's volunteers, Craig Cooper. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Lockel or Lockel?
Lockel.
Lockel. Get that right. Neela Lockel. So where do we stand in terms of handling the next big storm, Neela?
You know, I think we had a lot of learning after Superstorm Sandy, and as a result of that, our organization, as well as I think a lot of our community partners and our county officials, have recognized that we really need to put into place a lot of practices, partnerships, and be very much more aware of what kind of things can really happen to our region with the advent of a storm like that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, about how things have changed and more preparation, how you're working with people like Island Harvest and the warehouse food bank type folks who have a delivery system of their own, but you also rely on volunteers like Craig Cooper. Craig, were you there back in Superstorm Sandy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, it was really such an amazing thing to see right in our own front and backyards on Long Island. So many tens of thousands of homes without power, so many homes along the South Shores that were just completely devastated. You know, I've been to national disasters all over the country, but to have it happen right on Long Island was really very humbling. But one of the things that was so heartening to see was how the entire Red Cross system, the network that we have around the country, brought volunteers, brought equipment and supplies to Long Island. People from every corner of the country, every one of those red and white vehicles that you see, we call them emergency response vehicles, they were from everywhere around the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. We were there with our cameras along with the first responders, and you folks were there. Yep. And you were doing things like this, setting up cots. There were people that couldn't get anywhere near their homes. They were distraught, they were in tears, but your volunteers were there to help.
And it's really amazing to think about how our volunteers are really your neighbors. Your neighbors are helping you, and that's what we try to facilitate through training, recruiting, training volunteers, and getting them prepared to help themselves, help their communities, and to bring their knowledge across the region.
And that's been the hallmark of the American Red Cross. And it's a big anniversary for the Long Island chapter, right?
We are 100 years old.
You don't look it. But 100 years, wow, a whole century of this.
Yeah, it's been a century of service to the community, starting with World War I, the Great Express Hurricane of 1938, all the, World War II.
Which created a breach on Long Island.
Yeah.
Right.
So many things and so many opportunities for people to step up and step in and help their communities, and they do it. And we continue to recruit volunteers who give so selflessly of their time. They run out in the middle of the night. They're helping their neighbors who've been impacted by home fires. They're stepping in when natural disasters strike, both here on Long Island as well as across the country.
Yeah, how long have you been a volunteer, Craig?
We were just joking about that. I think I'm entitled to my 10-year pin this year. It's been about 10 years. And the funny thing is, Richard, that we see a surge in volunteers after every major disaster. I came on board around the time of Katrina. Certainly when Sandy struck in the New York and all up and down the Atlantic coast, we had a huge wave of new volunteers. Things have been quiet now for a few years in our area, and so the number of volunteers that we have on our registered active list has gone down a bit. And one of the things that we're doing in coordination with our 100-year anniversary is we're having a volunteer drive, hoping to get 100 new volunteers on Long Island.
100 for 100?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, as Neela was saying, it's a matter of neighbors helping neighbors, and people sometimes think about the Red Cross in terms of the big disasters and the big things that happen around the country. But every day here in the New York area, Long Island, we're responding to as many as 7 fires or other types of home disasters a day.
Every time. Yeah, I know. So, every time I go to a fire, half the time they're like, well, the Red Cross is putting them up in a hotel somewhere or at a shelter. And, you know, and you feel good about that, knowing that at least there's some place for them to go. What do you recall about that night when Sandy hit, or even the next day when you realized the devastation?
You know, I was lucky enough to get the last generator at our local home center, so I was able to get my family set up to some extent, and that freed me up to get out in my car and take a look at what had happened in other parts of Long Island. So driving through Garden City and seeing trees down an entire entire block, going down to the South Shore where all of the flooding took place. It was heartbreaking. And, you know, it didn't change for days, weeks afterwards. We were still out there helping and seeing families that were still recovering. And here we are, as you said before, nearly 5 years later, there are families that are still just putting the finishing touches on their own rebuilding efforts at their home.
Or even boarded up properties that haven't even been touched, that have been taken over by the state, that are going to be destroyed. So what about the changes in infrastructure and elevating properties and the critical resources? Where does that all stand, Neela?
You know, I think what we are learning as a region is that we have to be prepared. We have to know what to expect, and as a result, the American Red Cross, for example, has pre-positioned supplies all over the island now. We've established partnerships with our community partners. Residents in various communities are being guided around how they can best protect their homes, their properties, and it's a big undertaking to make some of these changes, and a lot of folks are doing it, and a lot of folks are trying to find ways to make it happen.
Well, you know, and I don't think people realize this is hurricane season.
Right.
So we just saw Cindy, you know, do some serious damage.
And the Red Cross was called in to support already in Alabama, Tennessee, down in the South where the flooding has taken place. We sheltered almost 100 people last night, and it's just a reminder. You know, it's not just about what the Red Cross is doing to prepare, but it's about what every neighbor should be doing as well. And it's making sure you can go to our website, you can go to the county websites as well, and just remind yourself of the supplies that you should have at home, the right amount of water to have, batteries, and just make sure that you're prepared, because we know from Sandy and from many other experiences that Long Island and our entire region, it's just a matter of time before we're going to get hit again.
I would say, too, that some of the other things that people can do are they can download the Red Cross Emergency app, and that'll give you alerts and information on how to protect yourself if something happens. But also, another thing that the American Red Cross has started doing here on Long Island is we deliver preparedness education. So we deliver, it's called the Citizens Preparedness Corps. It's through the governor's office. It's preparedness training to teach residents and community members what they can do. It's going through all of those things that Craig was just talking about.
Well, we really appreciate the work you guys do. It's very heartwarming to know that we have folks who care about this. And we really thank you, Craig, for being a volunteer, and Neela for leading your organization. How does somebody become a volunteer? We have about 15 seconds.
Sure. You visit www.redcross.org and register to be a volunteer. There's an opportunity for everybody, for every schedule, every skill set. We'd love to have you. Yeah,
and we hope that we never have to see you doing that, but we know that you'll be there when the call comes.
Either here or someplace else.
That's right. Neela Lockel. Neela Lockel with the Long Island American Red Cross. She's the CEO, and volunteer Craig Cooper waiting on his 10-year pin. I think you're going to have to work on that.
It's on its way. It's on its way.
All right. Thanks for your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.